Greetings to you all, my esteemed viewer. Thank you so much for viewing my last video. Now I want to discuss about a very sensitive topic as regards to construction. All right, once more I welcome you to Benginia Construction Lecture Hub. Today I want to talk about, how to determine how to determine how to determine how to determine the the depth of foundation. How to determine the depth of foundation. Now, as you know, foundation is that substructural part of the building that helps to spread the load from the gravity load from the superstructure. All right, the importance of our foundation cannot be overemphasized. All right, so I want you to also know that the longevity of that building is dependent on how solid, how good your foundation is. All right, so today we are going to look at the depth of how to determine the depth of our foundation. Like, as you know, foundation are the part of the building that are found below ground level. So it means that there will be a depth. That foundation should be laid at a particular depth, okay, because it have a good effect in terms of resistance to lateral forces. All right, so today we are going to look at some of those factors, that determines the depth of our foundation. And one, we are going to look at the load. Okay, the load. Now, the load here has to do with the gravity load, the expected load that structure is expected to, carry. All right, because eventually those loads finally gets to the foundation, which, from the foundation is being spread, to the soil. All right, so we must understand the magnitude of the load, because the higher the load, it requires a corresponding resistance, in terms of resistance to that load, for it kind of to reduce the intensity of the pressure that the load will pose on the soil. All right, so the depth of our foundation is dependent on the magnitude of the load that structure is expected to carry. All right, so you have to look at it critically. And also, this is also one of the factors that determines the size of our foundation. Okay, the size of our foundation. It is the magnitude of the load that gives that is one of the factors that determines the size of our foundation base, and footings. All right, so the load is one of the factors. Then we look at the bearing capacity. The bearing capacity of the soil. Okay, the bearing capacity of the soil. Now, when we talk about bearing capacity of the soil, we are referring to the carrying power of the soil. All right, because our building rests on the soil. So we must assess to know the capacity of this soil to be able to carry this structure. Now, as you know, we have different types of soils, okay, soil makeups. All right, so, and when we want to now build on this soil, it is important for us to ascertain the true state of that soil before we can know how to go about with our design. All right, you see that most times a lot of persons normally provide this in their design, that the depth of foundation will be determined as site. All right, it is not proper, because for you to first and foremost come up with a design, it means that you must have considered the bearing capacity of that soil, okay, in the design. If that is truly a design that you did, it means that you must have considered the bearing capacity of the soil during the design stage, because there is no way you can specified in your design that the depth of foundation will be determined at site. All right, the depth of foundation is a product of your bearing capacity, which you have considered during the designing of that structure. All right, so it is necessary during the design you come up with the depth, because it is the bearing capacity that gives the with relationship with the load that will give you a clear perspective on the depth of that foundation. All right, so that is that. So bearing capacity of the soil is one of the factors that we are going to that will determine the depth of foundation. Then another factor we are going to look is the water table. Okay, the water table. Now, the height of the water table, that is the piezometric level of the groundwater, is very, very important in considering the depth of our foundation. Because now you see that when you have your foundation at shallow depth, okay, if not properly examined, you see that the activities of groundwater can influence differential settlement to take place, in that foundation, because there's what we call liquefaction. Now, when that happens, especially in sandy soil, you see that the settlement of that structure will commence, and if it's differential, that means it's going to cause a lot of crack formations in both the substructure and the superstructure. So the groundwater level also plays role in determining the depth of our foundation. Then also, you see that water is good in construction, and water also poses challenges in construction, especially when we are doing excavation and all of that. You see that when you excavate and water starts gushing out, you see that at a point in time, the entire trench will be filled up. That will now require you doing dewatering. All right, and in most cases, if you don't apply a good techniques in dewatering, that water will still be a challenge to you. All right, so you can also understand these challenges when you have known the water level in that location. Okay, that will now give you a clear idea on how to curtail or how to handle this water challenge when they come up on site. So the water table is also a factor, okay, that we need to consider in determining the depth of our foundation. Then also we look at the soil layers, okay, the soil layers, underlying soil layers, okay. Let's look at underlining soil layer, okay. Now this is also similar to the bearing capacity of the soil, but you discover that bearing capacity of the soil increases with depth. All right, now in some soil, we have different types of soil, and they have their various peculiarities, okay. They are peculiar in their own types. All right, so but generally we look at bearing capacity for all soils, because it is bearing capacity that really defines the strength of that soil, okay. It is a bearing capacity. Now the underlying layer now talks about, now for example, these are layers of the soil. These are layers of the soil. Now you're doing your foundation here, okay. You're doing your foundation here. Now probably this place looks stable, okay. This place looks stable. Now maybe here is a little compressible, okay. This layer looks compressible. Now by the time you put your base, by the time your base comes in, okay, and the load comes, you see that this place tends to respond, okay. This place tends to respond because of its compressibility, degree of compressibility. And when this place responds, it means that this table's layer will also tend to, go alongside the behavior of this compressible layer. All right, and when that happens, it will affect this the stability of this foundation. All right, so we try as much as possible to understand the profiling of the soil layer. Okay, profiling of the soil layer. Okay, profiling of the soil. Okay, profiling of the soil. So when you profile the soil, you'll be able to understand the different layers of that soil, the soil makeup in terms of their stratas. Okay, you'll be able to identify that, so you can know how you're going to, the depth you're going to go as regards to your foundation. All right, so this is some of the factors that determines the depth of our foundation. Please do well to follow this page. Ensure that you stick to Bengineer Construction Lecture Hub for more useful updates as regards to construction. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop here for today. Do have a blissful day. Thank you.